Hello, 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 the mask is back, and we are just going to jump into it because I have no time whatsoever to make predictions, so I'm just going to rush it. She is a minus 500 favorite, and the other girl has two losses in the UFC, so with that being said, probably 30-27 decision over this other girl who has two losses. Oliveira, whoever, Reneve Oliveira? Ravenna, whatever. And then same thing with this guy, he's not two losses in the UFC, but I remember that um, I don't really like his last performance, I'll say that much. So I'm gonna go with this guy. He lost only to the next Khabib, basically, is what we're gonna call him. That's what everybody else is calling him, so it's not a bad loss, and otherwise he was deemed as quite a decent prospect in his past, so even though he didn't look too good in that fight, I'm gonna go with him over Abdul Karim El Swadi because even though, he he's not terrible, he has a pretty bad performance in his last fight, so I just can't pick him in this. And Luis Sutherland, Breno Perisic, yeah, I think Luis is certainly underrated going into this. And it's worrying for sure because, I want to pick the Croatian guy a lot because, that's my brother. That's my Croatian brother. But um, it's a little tricky because he's unproven. He beat up on a schmuck who granted had a decent record going into it, I believe 6-1, 5-1, but still a good record, all things considered for heavyweight. It's not bad. And he decimated him, but he didn't really show much skill. He kind of just bum rushed him for the most part. And look, in the grappling department, he was showing a decent ability to get off the cage, end up on top. Like in the grappling, he should be comfortably winning, but I just don't know if it'll end up there because Louis Sutherland, he was doing a decent job on short notice, staying composed, staying on the feet for as long as it lasted against Walter Walker until it eventually got there. But it was a little tricky for Walter, and Walter's pretty good. So Brando is a little unproven, and that's quite worrying going into this. But I'm going to say first round ground and pound TKO, similar to the last fight. Possibly even a submission, but I'll go with a KO. I could see a leg lock as well. Mantas Cortevios. I'm not even gonna try, or maybe I will. Kondratavicius versus Antonio Trincoli. I mean, is there any breakdown needed? He landed a beautiful straight against the Croatian guy that I wanted to win in the Dana White's Contender Series, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, he just followed up with nasty shots around the guard and even on the guard. I think it was a standing TKO, but it might have been a full-on flatline. I completely forgot. I think either it was a standing TKO or his body just flopped over itself like a lawn chair. Yeah, I do see a first round KO probably due to just a clean, fast 1-2 off of a feint or like a feint jab to a cross. Um, Felipe Franco. I mean that doesn't need a prediction really. I mean. Or a breakdown. I mean, Antonio Tricoli's trash. Let's just be honest. How big of a favorite is he? Okay, yeah, minus 800. Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, 800. I mean, come on. Does anyone actually pick Tricoli in that? Okay, 4% are picking him for some reason. And then same thing here. I feel like it's actually going to be a submission in the first round. I don't know much about Felipe Franco. In fact, I don't know anything about him. Maybe I watched some of his fights and I forgot in the past, but Mario Pinto, he really impressed me with his grappling in his last fight. Bedtime MMA said it best. It's like he's prime Curtis Blades, and more so than that, he's actually showing jiu-jitsu, whereas Curtis Blades, for the most part, shot a pretty good takedown when he was backing his opponents up with decent offense on the feet. He would mix things together pretty well, but Mario Pinto is doing that more with counters on the feet. And that's the only thing. He's relying more on counters on the feet, and he's a bit slow to do that because sometimes he'll end up getting caught for that, like we saw against Austin Lane, which is certainly not good. But overall, I truly believe that Mario Pinto is a far better grappler, and he's showing jiu-jitsu. He's showing transitions from positions a lot better than almost any other heavyweight grappler that we've seen, honestly, in my opinion. So I truly believe it's a first round submission. I don't care what Felipe brings to the table, to be honest. Lucien Kieta and Nathaniel Wood. I'm gonna go with Lucien Kieta. I think he's gonna land a knee to the body and then or no, not a knee to the body. I think he's gonna end up in a clinch exchange with Nathaniel Wood, and I think that he's gonna bring the head down, bring the posture down, and land a knee upstairs to the head. Because one thing is, even though Nathaniel Wood has always shown great recoverability, he's always gotten dropped, and it's just that his opponents don't have the finisher instinct to fully put him away. And if we actually look back at his opponents, even though he's proven that he's a top 15 level fighter in the featherweight division, if you ask me, just based on the competition and the fact that he's constantly winning and he's only losing in these super hyper close fights where the other opponent's like cheating basically. The problem here is he's nothing like crazy good, and like I said, the recoverability, it's like it's not going to be allowed here. You look at these guys like Daniel Pineda, you look at these guys like Andre Fili, these guys are generally more willing to go to decision, much more willing to. Lucien Kita, he's a hungry prospect with dangerous power, and he has finisher instinct. He has a lot more finishes, decent records on his wins, and overall, I think that Nathaniel Wood, he even against even if you think that he won against Daniel Hilgado, I believe that's the name, or no, Jose Delgado. Um, Overall, he was Jose is not he is a finisher, don't get me wrong, but what we're seeing now with Jose, even in his last fight, we're seeing more so now that he is able to go to more pitter-pat decisions. If you're not basically flatlined on the floor already, he's going to have a hard time finishing you. So basically, Nathaniel Wood is going up against these guys that are not able to finish him completely. That he's able to get dropped, but when he's able to get dropped, and then someone's willing to follow up more and just expend their gas tank and try to actually finish him, he probably will get finished. So I do think a knee will land upstairs right through the guard, and then he'll follow up with some nasty hooks against the fence. Yeah, first round KO. Mason Jones, Axel Sola. I am going with this is actually a tricky one, but I'll go with Jones. I'll go with Jones because I think that Jones has shown a pretty good chin. I also think that he keeps a really nice tight high guard. Axel Sola could target the body, and I've seen in the past that he is capable of doing that. However, Axel Sola, he's not very dangerous in my opinion. He's able to keep things competitive with pretty middle-ranged, middle of the road UFC guys. He's until he finds the moments of success that he needs to, like in these moments where his opponent's fading, but for the most part, he'll let his opponents do what they want to early on, and I think that Mason Jones is going to be able to steal the first round, and then if the second round Axel Sola starts to come on, I think that Mason Jones is going to show that his durability, shows experience and toughness. And yeah, I think that I think overall what we see with Mason Jones is he's gonna he's gonna rely on the hands a little more in the first round, and then in the third round he's gonna rely on his grappling more. He's gonna find a double leg takedown. He's gonna just secure mount, and he's just gonna add total strikes, not really doing too much. And Axel Sola, coming down from welterweight, he's not gonna be ready for the speed. I think he is gonna be strong enough to constantly hip escape and transition from positions and fight the hands, but overall, I think that Mason Jones is going to land a few more elbows, a few more ground and pound up stairs on the third round, and just do enough for the third round, 29-28 decision. Danny Silva, Curtis Campbell. I'm actually going to go with Danny Silva. I think that he is very underrated going into this. Danny Silva has very good pressure. I was really impressed in hindsight with just how good his performance was with the Kevin Vallejos, the Ilya Taporia 2.0. In hindsight, that was a really good performance because, let's be honest, even though it was a pretty clear cut 30-27 in hindsight, um, the Kevin Vallejos, he only won each round by like a few strikes. It was still pretty close. And he was landing the harder strikes, but Danny Silva was landing constantly. He was like in the pocket trading with him. And it shows that Danny Silva, even though he's constantly going to these close decisions with these guys and their wars, and they're gonna add up to the deterioration of his chin, he is able to show his chin, his grit, and show his moments where he's able to find the chin in the pocket, and sometimes even to the body. So I do think that Curtis Campbell is just really not proven enough, and I think that Danny Silva is against really good opposition, and he's fighting constantly. He's very active, and so I think that Danny Silva is just gonna rack up a lot of points on these hooks that he's gonna land in close in the pocket, and even at range he's gonna land some flicky kicks and some jabs even. So yeah, I'm gonna say even probably 30-27. Christian Leroy Duncan, Roman Dolidze, is this even a question? I mean, CLD is gonna land a spinning, probably a I'm gonna say a front kick in the second round. I think that Roman Dolidze is way too sloppy on the feet. He's able to make these things work against guys that, in hindsight, were pretty overrated, like Kevin Holland and Jack Hermanson. Like on paper, they're okay wins because they've both been ranked, and even Jack Hermanson was ranked close to the top five at one point. But these were times that were like that these divisions were like more empty, more shallow. And Christian Leroy Duncan, he's way more fast, way more explosive. The only thing is he really fumbled. This is the only worry for me. And I don't like that he's a minus 500, but he was really showing a bad takedown defense game against Gregory Rodriguez. And I understand it's Gregory Rodriguez. He's big and he's underrated and he's a really good prospect even still at his age. And Gregory Rodriguez is great, and he's like super explosive, super strong in the clinch and the takedowns on top. We know this, but Roman Dolidze is also pretty strong. He's also, granted, not got a great shot, but got like very strong ground and pound when he's on mount, as we saw against Kevin Holland. Now, granted, it took him a while, and Kevin Holland was injured in the mo in the sequence which led to the finish. Kevin Holland was injured, yeah, but overall, I think that these guys that Roman Dolidze is having problems with, they are more. Kevin Holland, it relies way too much on explosivity. He does not have the versatility of tools that Christian Leroy Duncan does. I think he's going to hurt Roman Dolidze on the guard with a few of these elbows. I think that his clinch game is going to be nasty, landing some knees to the body, which is going to slow down Roman Dolidze. And I think overall he's going to land an up elbow that's going to start the following sequence or finishing sequence. And Roman Dolidze is going to back up. CLD is going to give him his space. He's going to whiff on some hooks, Dolidze, and he's going to follow up with a beautiful front kick to the face, CLD. I truly believe he's going to land another beautiful finish. Austin Lane versus Iwo Baranowski. I was really considering Austin Lane, and he's actually a live underdog here. I'm not even joking, but I'm gonna go with Iwo Baranowski. I do think that the range is gonna be so interesting to have to deal with, and I think he's gonna get dropped even because Iwo did not really show a great chin against um, Ibo Aslan. Now, granted, that was uh, that was a bar brawl type of fight, and Austin Lane also has shown a worse chin, granted at heavyweight, so these guys are harder hitters. So it's going to be interesting. I do think that it's going to be I think it's going to be interesting. I think that he's going to land a takedown. Austin Lane is going to secure some control time, but he did show that he gassed when he was um, when he was forced to work in the ground in the grappling exchanges against a Janata Denise. Austin Lane was forced to work, and he then gassed from that, and then the hooks came easy, and the hooks on the overhands, and so I do think that he's going to get backed up, not having his hands up after being gassed. He's not going to have the range tools because in general he's not that great with distance management. He's okay, but especially when he's gassed, he's not good at all. So I do think that late in the first round, probably in like the last 30 seconds of the round, it's going to be rough for him, and I think he's not going to be able to get Iwo Baranowski off of him. Michael Page and Sam Pedersen. I'm going to go with Page. I do think that this is honestly like not a terrible pick to go with Sam Pedersen. I don't. However, I do think that Michael Page, I honestly, decision makes sense. I'll go with decision. But with this fight stylistically, I understand that Sam Pedersen's very improved, but we saw a guy who is basically a way worse Ilya Taporia in Yanela Shmooze just land a bomb in close like a hook. Yeah, and it was it was bad because Sam Patterson, his chin is always out there. He's getting better with covering his chin with his hands. And so I do think that he's going to be walking forward into Michael Page's overhand right a bunch of times and his straight right a bunch of times and the knee, and he's going to be carrying his guard really high and tight. But it eventually is going to split through, and so I could totally see a KO here, especially since Sam Patterson did not look like he showed a great survivability. He seems like the type of guy who's very good at being the hammer but not the nail, and so it's certainly worrying here picking decision. I could totally see a finish, absolutely from Page. I could see this being like the first finish in a while. But the safe pick here is decision because Michael Page sometimes he doesn't trust himself following you to the ground, and so he'll let you get back up and do an emote. So overall, I do think that the knees, the overhand right, the straight right, it's gonna be there, and Sam Patterson, he's gonna have to rely on his jiu-jitsu when he's getting hurt, when he's getting rocked, and he's gonna have to try and rush into the cage, work the clinch, sometimes get some knees of his own, and hopefully drag him to the ground. But I do think that Kevin Holland, even though he's overrated and he's mostly an attributes merchant, he is underrated in the jiu-jitsu department, offensively at least. So therefore, I do think that Sam Patterson isn't going to be that much better than Kevin Holland. I think that people are saying that, oh, he's like a better Kevin Holland. I don't necessarily agree. I think that he's kind of on that Kevin Holland level, to be honest. So I'll say 29-28 maybe. Could be 30-27. Luke Riley, Michael Aswell. I'm going with Luke Riley. I don't know much about Michael Aswell. All I know is I think he lost to Belagioki. Yeah, I don't really care to pick you if you lose to Belagioki. This is going to be a showcase because let's be honest, Michael Aswell at 10 and I mean, well, I think it's 10-3 on UFC's page. It says 11-3 here. 11-3, 10-3, whatever. This guy's being put here against the English guy to be made looking silly out there, and I think he's going to land a beautiful straight right down the pipe. Probably. Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy. I'm going with Movsar Evloev by a 48-47 decision. I think that Lerone Murphy is going to land some really nice teeps to the abs of Mufsar to the body. I think that those are really going to play dividends here. The only thing is, like he does that really well against a lot of his opponents. The only thing is, I know that people are pointing to Laura Murphy's overrated takedown defense, and it is true that he gets lifted into the air by Josh Emmett. He's having these showings where even against Aaron Pico, he's getting power lifted and taken down up against the fence. It's there, but I think the bigger thing is he's quite low output. I rewatched the Josh Emmett fight and I was really surprised how low output that fight was. Now, granted, it's because also his style is different from a Kevin Vallejos, for example, where Kevin Vallejos is more pressure, it's more intelligent pressure, whereas Laura Murphy, he's more willing to fight on the back foot. However, stylistically, that's not very good against Movsar Evloev. If you want to be pressuring Movsar, that's how these other guys that he's fought in the past have had more competitive fights. And granted, Laurent Murphy is really good at what he does. So I do think it is going to be a 48-47 decision. That is why. Because I do think that he, even though he for sure hasn't had the greatest takedown defense, I think that he has the 5 round experience. He has more overall well, they had the same basically. Actually, Mobster has one more fight, so I wasn't. I can't necessarily say he has more octagon time. However, I do think he's going to make Mobstar work for these positions. I think it's going to be similar to Hamzat Usman in that regard, although not exactly the same picture of them wrestling and Kamaru Usman constantly moving, not allowing Hamzat to secure the back. I do think that overall Lerone Murphy is going to make Mofsar work, keeping the tripod, switching positions from the knee, and then trying to work his base up. I do think that he's going to constantly be moving and not allow Mofsar to get the body triangle for at least 2 of the rounds where it's going to have to be striking for Mofsar because against Aljamain Sterling it was certainly tough for him to secure positions, and in fact in that fight it was Aljamain that, at least early on, that was initiating the grappling exchanges, and even in the third round he was still doing that. So he was able to secure these really dominant positions where it otherwise wouldn't have presented itself because Aljamain honestly has pretty good takedown defense if you ask me. Only thing is against Piotr Jan, the first time it was a different story. But otherwise, Aljamain, with his strength and with his size as well for the division, he's a pretty strong size and bulky featherweight. If he didn't initiate, it would have been quite close on the striking and probably would have been split decision either way, honestly. I think that it was looking quite good for him in the first round in the striking, and even later on in the fight, it was quite competitive even still. So I do think that Movsar's boxing is a little overrated. However, I think his grappling is very, very good once he gets it going. It's just he's very strong and he's very positionally aware. Those are the two things that you can say so confidently about Movsar. And Lerone, he has some good spinning attacks. He has a good spinning elbow. He has a good spinning back fist. He has a good jab. He has a good cross. an all right hook, although sometimes he leaves his chin open on that. And he's certainly the more polished striker, but Movsar can land some decent strikes on of his own, and overall, I think that he's going to set up the takedowns enough to secure 3 of the 5 rounds. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Mask of MMA out.